And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking Ferrari's secret test. It was meant to be today. They did have something today. They called it a demo. The run in the SF23 with their test drivers, one of them being, for example, Zhao Guanyu. So it appears that the secret test is tomorrow at the time of recording this at 10 o'clock on the 16th of July. So tomorrow, Thursday, the 17th of July, if you will, where they're going to test the suspension. This is the big thing that didn't quite make it in time for Silverstone, but will be making it for Spa. And it kind of makes sense why they are testing it now, even though it's not really a test, it's a filming day. Yeah, confusing, eh? But don't worry, we're going to get into what a filming day is, what they're doing, is it really a secret test, etc, etc. But this I thought was quite interesting. Lewis saying, the car is undrivable, mate. I mean, that's Lewis Hamilton. This is the Spanish Grand Prix. And not long ago, yeah, it absolutely, you can see, obviously not there, but you can see throughout the radio calls with him and both Leclerc, but in particular Hamilton, he's not really happy with the car. The best the car's been, funnily enough, was the most recent race in Silverstone. Such a good race. So this was Ferrari is going to take its new rear suspension to Mugello tomorrow. The team have worked, and they're talking about a specific aerodynamic setup to stress the new suspension. Leclerc and Hamilton are going to be behind the wheel. I don't know if that's a picture of the new suspension. I doubt it is. They've got another picture here, which is a bit closer of the suspension. I mean, it's really, really tough. I mean, people like me, I'm not going to see the difference at all. And also there's been a hydraulic steering issue which has plagued both drivers, in particular Charles Leclerc. And it's interesting that they mention this, that they have solved this hydraulic steering issue where the car sometimes feels a bit funny. It is ruled out. It's not ruled out that the Ferrari engineers have also worked on the hydraulic fuel steering system, which has caused significant difficulties for both Leclerc and Hamilton. So that can only mean good things. And apparently, after this big update, Ferrari are going to be due to shifting their focus on 2026 after this new rear suspension does a fair amount of laps at Mugello. So this was on the 15th of July, and Planet F1 had a really interesting article which I want to talk about and share with you. Ferrari filming day or covert test. New rear suspension to run. This is reports. Now, bearing in mind, it was meant to run today. It didn't. It's been delayed now until tomorrow, the 17th of July. Yeah, they're hoping this new design is going to be key to resolving their ride height issues. If you remember, all the way back in China, yeah, Lewis had a decent sprint race. Not so good in the actual race, but disqualification happened because the plank underneath the car wore too much. It's only you're allowed to wear a certain amount, and it wore too much. And then there was just, they were expelled. If you remember, that happened in America, in the United States Grand Prix, not last year, but I believe the year before, and also to George Russell losing that Belgian Grand Prix win last year. But Ferrari has grappled with the ride height issue with this year's car. There's been people suggesting that they just designed it completely wrong, and they've been running higher than they would like. And what does that mean? Well, the higher you run, if you higher than optimal, let's say, your car is not going to be sucked to the ground as much. It's not going to be as grippy in the corners as much, and it may even be unbalanced. And as we said, that was because of the Chinese Grand Prix skid wear. So it's interesting, isn't it? Ted Kravitz, he's highlighted the issue that the Ferrari teammates were told to lift and coast at the Austrian Grand Prix. Now, lift and coast means basically take your foot off the throttle, and that, lifting, essentially, which means then the car won't be going as fast, and the car will actually lift a tiny bit, therefore taking that pressure off that plank. And he said the reason they have to do this is that they have a problem with their ride heights, whereby they can't run the car on heavy fuel as low as they want. They asked the drivers to lift and coast just so the car comes up a bit so it can glide into the corners. He said it's not a tyre wear thing, it's not a fuel thing, it's not a brake thing, it's not any of this. It's to protect, we believe, the ride height, which I think is really, really interesting, which is one of the main things the suspension is going to have to sort itself out. But what are F1 teams permitted to do with their cars on filming day shakedowns? They've been allowed to do this since about 2023. And obviously Haas has become the teams. What is it? Most of the teams will elect to hold a shakedown, which is kind of like a filming day, essentially. And this is before, the beginning of the year. But a provision in the sporting regulation is made to allow every team a set amount of track time with current machinery in order to gather promotional material for the purpose of, for example, gathering stock footage, imagery to show off the car from every angle. Just think of the amount of TV and internet ads you see throughout the year of the current Formula 1 car, for example, and pictures, etc. Of course, when there's a current car on track, it's the opportunity for the teams to learn something relevant. Absolutely, because now we don't do testing in season, do we, really? And this is why in recent years these promotional events has been called filming days, and it's allowed the teams the chance to perform a shakedown of their cars, for example, ahead of pre-season testing or certain races. But the filming day, they do have strict rules. Yeah. The rules in F1 filming day are laid out in Article 10.4. Each team is permitted, and here we go, here are the rules. Each team is permitted 2 of such days over the course of the season, 2 filming days. Yeah, the rules outline that teams are only permitted a maximum distance of 100 kilometres of driving time. Usually teams opt for a shortened configuration of the track they've booked for filming day. That allows them to get more laps. So it's 100 kilometres, not necessarily the amount of laps. For example, you can have Silverstone National, which halves the circuit basically. And for example, the shortened international layout of Silverstone is just 3 kilometres, meaning a team using that layout could carry out 33 laps during their filming. Using the full-length Grand Prix layout, it would just be 16.9, so double. The car must be fitted with the standard FIA ECU for filming, as outlined in one of the articles. And finally, to ensure the teams can't perform any sneaky performance runs, Pirelli supplies specific tyres for use on filming days. These compounds are as hard as rock and may even resemble wet weather tyres in terms of grooves and patterns, and are incredibly long-lived. They are demonstration tyres, which are often used for demonstration runs with umpteen burnouts and donuts that teams, for example like Red Bull, like to carry out. If any of you have been to Goodwood Festival of Speed, that is exactly that. And added to these restrictions, the car is usually being followed around by a filming car or two, standard row machines kitted out with camera, booms and operators to capture the angles required for their sponsorship-friendly videos and pictures. Let there be no doubt about it, a shakedown filming day can only be used by the teams in order to ensure a very basic level of reliability ahead of proper F1 testing or whatever they want. So that's interesting, and I imagine they're going to put, the suspension on the Ferrari, so it's not really like a test day. They can kind of see if it worked. They Flovis paint potentially, I guess, even, but then that would technically be testing. I don't know how they're going to get around that. Interesting fact though, assuming as we were talking about Ferrari, it's Lewis Hamilton, Oscar Piastri, the only two drivers to score points in every F1 weekend so far, which means we probably cursed them for Spa. They're going to have a crash, aren't they? But Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri, the only two drivers to score points in every 2025 F1 weekend, which I think is pretty cool. And Lewis finally get his elbows out at Ferrari. This was on Wednesday. Lewis is not meant to finish P4. It goes. This is from GPFans.com. The champion knows it. We know. I mean, he doesn't want to finish P4. Loads of people were disappointed him not finishing P3 at Silverstone. However, how can you be upset that it was Hulkenberg that took his place? Yeah, I know. It's a difficult one, isn't it? So, as you know, the team introduced 4 facets of the car's floor, including fences, engine, central body and diffuser. Both drivers confirmed it was a step forward, regardless of obviously McLaren's advantage now. And that was at Austria. A week later at Silverstone, Hamilton displayed his form of old and looked very competitive. However, the poor performance in the wet weather, he was just not comfortable, nor was Leclerc. And one of Ferrari's main challenges, obviously, we're talking about the ride height again, but this new suspension is going to hopefully sort it. And it says if these upgrades are approved and have the intended consequences, well, Hamilton may finally have the machinery to fight for a podium. Beating the McLarens is going to be a big ask. However, they are not... I don't feel they're as dominant as Max Verstappen was in the 2023 Red Bull at the moment. I guess they're getting near it. But anything can happen in a race. I know the McLarens, they can. As you saw in Austria, they can drive really close to each other. But can they drive close to other cars? That's one thing, if you remember, in the dominant years of Mercedes, when the Mercedes started near the back, that's one thing that they really, really had a lot of trouble with, was driving close to their competitors. So I guess we can have our fingers crossed and see. But anyway, I digress. That's pretty much it about Ferrari's secret test. Is it a test? Sort of, but not really. But I imagine they're still very much going to be learning something from that. If you made it to the end, please give us a subscribe. I'll hit that button now. If you're already subscribed, hit that like button. That'll give us even more smiles. Thank you very much, and we'll speak to you soon.